Welcome back to Paranormal Patio. If you're just stumbling across this episode, hey, guess what? We've got a bunch more of them, and they're all great. You can find them on all your major podcasting platforms, except for Apple. It's a personal decision. Tonight brings Season 2 of Paranormal Patio to a close, and I wanted to take a little bit of time to go over some of the... Actually, let's just go over all the guests that we've had on Season 2. Season 2 started with Penny Royal, Nathan Darien. Was very important to me, just with my personal experiences and how it has progressed now to a point that I am taking this break to work on a video project, and I'll have more news on that as time goes on. After I talked to Penny Royal, we had Tales from the Dark and Small Town Monsters, Seth Breedlove. Kiki Nebraska came on, and Kiki, I didn't even really know what we were going to talk about. I knew she was into tarot and all this stuff, and it ended up just talking about Kentucky because, you know, that's just how my life is. And I had no idea that she had a connection to Kentucky, and we started talking before the interview, and she brought up Paducah, and I was like, oh, holy cow. You know, I had this crazy experience 15 minutes from Paducah. So that worked out, and it was really cool, and I love when things like that happen, when I don't plan to talk about something that's relevant to me, and that's just how it ends up, you know, evolving, and that's what it becomes. After Kiki had the Haunted Mitten podcast on, definitely not a Furby in a mitten, it's still not one. Then we talked with Spook Eats about the Feminine Macabre and the book that she put out, which was a great book. I have it now. We had Kyle Cadell from the International Paranormal Museum and Research Center, and also Penny Royal. Kyle's awesome. It's safe to say at this point that I have spent some time with Kyle in person, and also with the Penny Royal guys, and they're all great, and I absolutely love the time that I spent in Somerset. After Kyle, we talked with Connor in India and their Paranormal Encounters channel. Then we traveled to Scotland, Unexplained Scotland, which is huge. That's cool. You know, we're breaking boundaries. And then Beyond Sight, Kevin and Jessica, and I got to meet them and spend some time with them in the woods in Kentucky. So bizarre to say it out loud. They will be featured in the video project as well. And completely grateful for the time that I spent with them, and super awesome people. Adam Towler came back for his second appearance, the only recurring guest on the show. And Adam is great. He's become one of my best friends, actually. We talk a lot, and hopefully someday we can meet up and do some crazy stuff. Yeah, for sure. Robin Valentine was fun, and unfortunately the episode had to be cut short because I almost died in a thunderstorm, and she's great, and hopefully we can have her on in season 3, because I don't feel like we were able to really give that the justice that it deserved. We talked to Bill Konkoleski, the MUFON director from Michigan, and his really awesome stories of his encounters with extraterrestrials. And Bill's also really great. Barry Gellis. We talked about Seth and Jane Roberts. Barry is just a fountain of information, you know, and it comes directly from the source. He knew Jane and got to experience her channeling, which was probably incredible in person. And then here we are. And it's weird, and I hope I didn't leave anybody out, but it's weird to think that season 2 has come to a close with this episode. But it has. And I promise that there's more content on the way. Just because I'm taking a break does not mean you won't be able to get your fill from the Paranormal Patio. Because in the midst of doing season 2, I have reached out to some other podcasters and people that are in my circles, and we have some cool little side podcasts that will be coming out, in the next couple weeks, and then a couple weeks spaced out just like normal, patio takeovers, where I'm having some guests come on. I'm not an interview. I just give them the reins, and I gave them an article from a random issue of Search magazine that you can find in our Paranormal Patio files on paranormalpatio.com. And they just read it, give their thoughts, and some of them are pretty wild. I'm not going to spoil it, though, because they're, like I said, it's a takeover. I'm letting them have the floor. And it's people that I'd love to have on the show that, for one reason or another, didn't make it into season 2. And so this is a way to incorporate them and include them in the content for the show. Beyond the takeovers, we will be doing, hopefully, some video stuff, and there'll be announcements made, and if necessary, I'll put out a little podcast to talk about them and make a podcast announcement. There's a couple of places that I want to go to and try to film some things, and all the while, I will be working on my documentary that I started in Kentucky. I have decided on the title, and this will be the announcement for the title. It will be called Surface, and there's a tagline to Surface: "Before me, my altar." And the way that I came up with this was, so much of this trip and this documentary is focused on Edidorpa and my connection to the story. And it became pretty well the sole research topic for my whole year. And I wanted to find a way to pull the title from the source. So I pulled up a utility online and plugged in the ebook version of Edidorpa and looked for the most common words that are used. And so scrolling through, obviously the first top 10 or top 15 or probably top 20 were, words like the and at and those are boring and make for a really bad documentary title. So the first one that stood out to me was the word surface. And surface appeared 299 times. So I plugged 299 into the secret cipher of the Euphonauts and pulled some values. And the one that stuck out to me was "Before me, my altar." And it really fit with my whole experience and what I think the documentary is about. So there it is. Surface will be coming hopefully before the end of the year. I'm looking to have the trailer ready end of summer, but I'll keep you updated on that. Follow us on social media to get updates, and keep your eyes open to wherever you're listening to this right now. There's a good chance that I'll have some sort of audio announcement. This break comes because not just the documentary work that I have to do, but I am moving. So my focus has to shift a little bit here for the next few months. We're moving and getting the house ready and doing all the things there. And then when that's done, I start on the documentary. So I am looking forward to it a lot. Hello, this is future Jason. Well, I guess technically present day Jason. So I recorded this episode like 2 months ago. Maybe not quite, but it's been a minute. And since then, I have moved. This is the first official recording, I suppose, for the podcast from the new location. So that's cool. But the reason I'm here and interrupting past Jason, which is also present Jason, in this weird little time thing that we have going on, is because I wanted to let you guys know about this live stream that I have coming up at 10 p.m. Central Time on July 9th. And that will be in 1 week from the release of this episode that you're currently listening to. On tap for the live stream, I have several announcements. Announcement number 1, former guest and good friend of the show and personally, Adam Towla, will be here for a live talk. I don't know what we're going to talk about yet. It's Adam, and we could do anything. and I'm looking forward to that. Also, the official release of the teaser for the documentary that I just told you about. I'm pretty proud of it. The project is going great, just to give you guys an update. And I really look forward to sharing the teaser with everybody. It's a lot of fun, and I want your feedback. I've already got some from a few select friends of the show. Also, in regards to the documentary, the current plan is to actually have some music that will be in the documentary performed live from one of the artists, a good friend of mine, Joe Davis. Hopefully everything still works out and he will be here for that. In addition to that, because, you know, there's always more, a couple of my friends who I'm planning on doing some video projects with in the future should be here to join me for the live stream as well, so you can get to know them. They're going to be a big part of the show. Well, not this show, but in my general projects moving forward. You guys can meet them. And we'll be doing a live Q&A. So anybody that's there on our Facebook page, just search Facebook for Paranormal Patio, or you can go directly from facebook.com/parapatio. We'll have a StreamYard live stream, and you can go through the StreamYard process, which is really easy and fast, and I'll be able to see your name whenever you ask questions, and if you're cool with that. Otherwise, you can be anonymous and ask questions, and that's cool too. I'm looking forward to talking to everybody, showing the teaser, listening to some cool tunes, all that good stuff that I just mentioned. It's going to be a great time. So I guess back to past Jason, which is present day Jason. Take it away, bud. But tonight, the season 2 finale, Katie Webb. Yeah, we're going to get weird. Welcome to the Paranormal Patio.
You're listening to the Paranormal Patio Podcast. Pull up a chair.
Welcome back to Paranormal Patio. As always, I'm Jason. I'm joined tonight by Katie Webb. Katie, how are you doing this evening?
I am great. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm glad to be able to talk to you and share a little bit about you and your whole world with my fans, because we haven't had you on the show yet, so it's perfect.
Yay. I'm very happy to be here.
So let's just get started. Give us a little bit of background into you.
Ooh, let's see. So I was on a paranormal investigation web series called Haunt Me for 8 years, 6 seasons, so maybe 7 years. I don't know. A long time. You can watch episodes on YouTube. And then over quarantine, I spoke at the PhenomenaCon, put on by the Traveling Museum of Paranormal and Occult, Dana and Greg Newkirk. Yeah, I go around and I go to conventions and we investigate paranormal events, and I try to summon aliens a lot. Sometimes it works.
We're going to have to get into that later.
We can get into that, yeah. I actually have an event coming up that we're going to try to summon aliens, so, we can get into that.
That's terrific. Yes, we're definitely going to talk about that. Haunt Me is great. I haven't watched every episode, but I have watched a good, more than a handful. And, nice.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, your talk at PhenomenaCon was awesome.
I won some award for that show,
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yep.
What award did you receive for the show?
Let's see. Cinematography, I believe, like the way it looks. The editing. Maybe it was editing. Our director, Nick Nordforce, got that award. That's
awesome. I did not know that.
Yeah. It does look really great.
It does. Absolutely. I mean, if you didn't know better, you would know that you were just, I don't want to downplay anything, but you would know you were just watching a web show. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It looks professional. We used to get a lot of phone calls asking what our production company was. We're like, Nick and Mike.
You just laughed, right?
Yeah. Yep.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's, probably felt good to get that appreciation for those guys. one thing that I want to talk with you about tonight, and I think we'll just start with this, is you have had some really insane out-of-body experiences.
Yeah.
And I would love to sort of get a rundown of this whole journey and this other life that you live as a dragon. I think people would really appreciate it.
Cool. Cool, yeah. You know, it all kind of starts and ends with astral travel, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like a long conversation.
It is.
Yeah, right? Because you can't talk about astral travel without talking about a lot of other things. But I think mainly, you know, it's going to be different for everybody, obviously. But if we're going to just specifically talk about my experiences, then, you know, I'll specifically talk about, I don't know how that got started, I guess. There's a book called Alchemy of the Nine Dimensions. And he gives you meditations for meditating into the different dimensions. And so I did that. And, you know, since that, I've talked about my astral travel experiences, you know, on Euphemet. You can listen to that podcast and hear some of my experiences. And, you know, with friends and stuff like that. And since then, people have reached out and they've gotten that book and they've tried. And it doesn't, you know, it doesn't work for them. So I don't know why it works for me, I guess. But that is what I did. I used that book. Where the really crazy stuff started to begin was I started to go to a weekly meditation where the leader of the meditation used singing bowls. And she used, I don't know how to do it, but she was in contact with some types of being, and she had a language that was given to her that she spoke that wasn't like any language on our planet. And so she would chant and sing that language while she would use these singing bowls. I don't know, those meditations would send me. And that's sort of like where I discovered I was a dragon. But it all is connected in with, you know, paranormal investigation. Because I think when you paranormal investigate, you use senses that you don't use every day. And the more you try, and, you know, maybe your thing isn't paranormal investigating, maybe your thing is, I don't know, meditation or working your energy in some way. But the more you interact with the senses that you use that aren't mundane, you know, like math. I guess math is a little spiritual, but thinking of astrology.
Some people might disagree with
yeah, math was a bad example, but math's a little spiritual, but just like those everyday things that we just robotically do, driving and, you know, running a computer, moving away from those and using like third eye or getting in touch with like your sacral chakra and like really like engaging your body in different ways. I think like you just do that while you're paranormal investigating or while you're meditating, or while you're, you know, spell crafting. So I think those inclinations of which I already had going into these meditations, like helped facilitate these like deeper experiences. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, tell us about the first experience that you had.
The first one. So I'm having reoccurring experiences currently. So I'll actually talk about the very first one because I've had a reoccurring experience with that one lately. So I can't decide whether or not to admit that I used to use meditation as like an escape because I'm an addict. And so I'm always like, that was an addiction for me for a while. It's like one of those things that I don't know if it like takes away or adds to the experience for people knowing that information, but you have the soundbite. You can decide if you want. But I think I mention it because that's just how much I was meditating. I mean, it was multiple times a day. It was a lot before I started having these deeper experiences. So I don't want people to think that like it just was a natural occurrence for me. Like there was work behind it, you know?
Yeah.
Which I think might, you know, be important if people get like discouraged when it doesn't like happen for them the first time or anything. But, with that being said, I also take breaks from it like you do when you're realizing you're getting an addiction to something. And so I have taken a long break from it, and I've recently started getting back into it, and I'm having reoccurring experiences, which is kind of interesting, I guess. I don't know.
It's pretty unusual.
It's pretty unusual. With the same like creatures. So, okay. So my first experience, I was on the Reiki table of the same person that used to do those meditations. So anyway, my first experience, I was having Reiki done to me, and I used the meditation technique from the Barbara Handclough book, in that you kind of extend this cord running from the root chakra of your body, and you watch it go through every layer of earth, and you let it take like 10 seconds, because, you know, that feels like 5 minutes in meditation sometimes, and you let it take a while, and you watch it, and you feel it, and you really like let that root chakra kind of like heat up, and you feel it, and you just let it go, and you go, and you go, and you go. So I'm doing that. I'm having Reiki done, and I get to the center of the earth, and there is this elephant waiting for me. And it's a little bit cow, a little bit elephant. It's white with these like tan spots, like cowish spots, and it's bejeweled. I don't know. Have you ever watched Adventure Time?
Yeah.
The ancient Chinese tandem moor elephant?
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. It doesn't have rockets for feet, and it only has one head, but otherwise, it kind of has that voice like, oh, hello. But it asks me to call it, mom. Which, like, you know, if Freud, people can do whatever they want with that. But, so I'm just, I guess if you're like the transition from watching the cord to becoming in this area is like waking up. I don't watch myself arrive. It's like I've opened my eyes and there I am. And so I'm on this beach. It's, sandy. It's very like tropical, palm trees, lots and lots of foliage everywhere. But I can see through the trees a path to my left, and it goes to this really glistening, bright, what looks like glistening water. And straight ahead, kind of over to my right, is this elephant. And it's sitting like a human. So it's sitting on its butt with its like legs out. And it tells me to run at it and jump in its arms like Totoro style. So after it tells me to call it mom, it tells me to do that. And so I do that. I run and I jump and I'm in it and we like hug. I gotta be honest, I don't remember what it said to me at this point. So it's like so many years ago now. But what's really important is that after that, I went to the lake. And when I got there, it didn't look like water anymore. It was silver, like mercury or something. Like I shouldn't swim in it. And I didn't swim in it that day. I left. The meditation was over. It was kind of done. That was kind of it. But since then, I started returning there regularly. It was like once I got there, I was able to go there in the blink of an eye. I didn't even have to like drop the cord and wait. I could just, I don't know how to describe it, but it almost like sink my heart into another place and just like be there. And I've met all kinds of creatures, like a 3-headed white tiger was there one time. That time I got to sit on like a chair, like a throne. But why I say going to the lake was really important was because the lake is a lot of things. And many people I've talked to that have also had success with these meditations have also arrived at the lake. And so the lake seems to be the common denominator in a lot of people's experience with wherever this is. According to this book, it's the center of the earth. Hollow earth? I don't think so.
Well, it's actually, that brings up a good point because I was going to ask this, but this is a perfect opportunity. Like, obviously, it's hard for me to admit or believe that there's actually some sort of physical principle to the hollow earth. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to question, what we're taught in school, but at the same time, that's a big stretch for a casual person to just be like, yeah, there's definitely that possibility. But there has to also be some sort of non-physical interaction with these stories. I mean, you can go back to, Jules Verne, or even get a little weird and get into, the Darrow and the Tarot and, all of the Richard Shaver stuff, right? Mm-hmm. What if it's just some non-physical travel that these people are going to, and that this is a place that exists. It just doesn't really exist, under our feet.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's exactly it, because I think our meat suit is overrated. We're energy and spirit in here, and I think that connecting with these like energies and spirit realms is like a natural occurrence for what our spirit like wants to do. It's like we're capable of it. We can do it. There's all kinds of ideas about like where we go when we die and are we reincarnating and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of those ideas, we can really get into some of them, but a lot of them do have a lot of racist tendencies to them. But either way, like we are an energy, everything is.
Right.
I mean, science knows matter. We're vibrating. Everything's vibrating, man. It's all vibes. And,
it's interesting that this is the technique that you have found success with. I mean, at least initially, and I assume you don't always have to run this cord to the hollow earth every time, install a phone line every time you go. But it's interesting to me because it's very similar to the technique that I learned very early on, and I had never heard of this book before. I learned it from another book. There's a little bit more to it with visualization on the technique I've had success with, where I don't necessarily create a cord. It's like roots, like tree roots. Mm-hmm. They go down, ground you out, and then an energy shield sort of forming around you from the head down. That's the technique that I learned, and I don't even remember where I picked that up from. I've got probably a dozen different books on astral projection and Robert Bruce and the usual cast of characters when you start researching into it. So it is interesting that it's sort of a shared technique. Mm-hmm. So I think there's something to it for sure. And obviously, I mean, it works.
Yeah, it works. I think some different ideas. I have some okay. I think for some people, when they're experiencing something that like quote unquote doesn't work, they might just have a different way of experiencing altogether. So I think for some of us, we can have visual meditations. It's how we're like wired or whatever. But I think for other people, they might have feelings. They might try to meditate and they might not see anything, but they might have feelings show up. They might have smells, sounds. I don't think the be all end all is seeing. I think like it's really engaging and getting in touch with who we are, how we communicate, because, you know, for some of us, again, it's visual. Some can communicate auditorily great, and others are feelers, sensing and sliding through the ether. And I think that's all cool. And it's all valuable. We just have to kind of like acknowledge these things and pay attention.
Yeah. I mean, you can't debunk anybody's, validity just because their experience is different than your own.
Absolutely not. Yeah. I mean, if anything, that's just cooler. But like, we're all our own little like universes. We all have our own little versions of realities. That's cool.
But no, like I was saying, I think that you have all these different aspects of it, just from everybody's different ability to interact with it. And it is cooler, to be nonchalant with it. Like, it's cooler for sure.
And it's really cool when we have shared experiences, right? It makes it feel more real to get validated. But I don't think, it's not always about validation. Sometimes it's just like for us. And that's cool too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to hear about the recurring stuff, because after that I do have a couple more things I want to talk about with it.
So recently I started going back to that technique. So I dropped the old cord. This time, however, instead of opening my eyes and there I am in the center of the universe, in the center of the earth or whatever, I dropped down like I was Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. from the cord. So I don't know if that's like a sign that I'm rusty or like what. But that's what happened. And I landed on that same beach. Landed on the beach. That elephant was there. This time I got on top of the elephant and I stood on top of it. And I stood there and this creature started to show up. And it had all these arms and legs, and it had like pincers on the ends of the arms and legs, almost like scorpion-like pincers. And it was on 2 feet, and it like comes out of the bush, and it's just like standing there, and I just like was like, hey man, what's up? What's going on? And it just kind of like was standing there like snapping its pincers, and it felt like a video game moment where I had to like defeat a boss. And I just kind of was like reminded that I was a dragon, and I don't necessarily. So, okay. Something I have noticed about this particular meditation is that it's fairly in tune with supplying a metaphor potentially provided by my subconscious. So that got me thinking and spinning in all kinds of different directions. Obviously, we do wonder if it's our subconscious acting for us, or if it's like this actual outer body experience that we are interacting with something else. And this particular meditation was so obvious that it was like both of those things to me. And so I don't know. I'm spinning off on a tangent, but but it's interesting, because it's interesting in how much our subconscious plays a role in just everything, right? The way we react, who we are, our meditations, the way, people affect us, like just everything. So of course the subconscious is involved. It's just never been so glaringly obvious to me. I've always felt like these meditations, I was 100% experiencing something else that I did not have control over. But this particular pincery creature felt like a metaphor, because I was reminded in that moment that I was a dragon. And so I just became a dragon, and I was huge, obviously. I'm a fucking dragon. So much bigger than the pincer creature, than the elephant, than everything. I just became so much bigger, and I just kind of like dropped there down on the beach, and I just did a dragon scream, ah! And it left, and it just left. And it was almost like a regaining of like confidence thing for me, because COVID's been, it's been a tough one. The old quarantine's been tough on the old self.
I think a lot of people can relate to that, yeah.
Too, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely not ashamed to admit that, because I think a lot of people are experiencing the same thing. I'm also like a single person experiencing it alone, so you can imagine, being alone for a year. But in that moment, I was like, it was like that confidence thing, like you are still you. And so it was, I don't know, it was a kind of an interesting experience. And every meditation I've had that has been reoccurring has been kind of like that. They've all been sort of like a lesson, which is interesting too.
How many times has this pincer creature on the beach happened to you?
Just the one. The pincer was just one. The other lesson was a story I talked about on Euphemet. It was when I got put in jail in the second dimension. That was when I went to the second dimension. But like going back and re-finding myself was something I did like at the very beginning of quarantine, like a year ago now. And when I got there and found that me that was in jail, I decided I was going to ask myself some questions. And I was like, how did you get here? Like, what happened? And I said to myself, you put me here. And then it started kind of like doing like a life flashing before your eyes, like movie montage of all of the reasons I might have put myself there. And all of the reasons I left myself there, not to get too dark. So that was another like weird subconscious moment talking to myself. But in this world where I'm a visitor, so very strange, like overlapping scenarios, I guess. Overlapping ideas merging together in the brain or somewhere in the ether.
So I guess my next question is, have all of your out-of-body experiences, have they all been set in this sort of fantastical realm of talking elephants that sit on their butts and dragons and pincer monsters?
No, definitely not. No, there's plenty that are, oh gosh, there's so many. I've done the whole like outer body experiences of like walking down the street and all of a sudden being above myself and like watching myself walk down the street. And, there's been the others where you project yourself like just into the nothing and you're just out into the nothing. That one's cool. I don't do a lot of like remote viewing style or trying to project myself into other people's consciousness. It's like a violation. I feel a lot of different ways about doing things like that. With consent, with another person, absolutely. I actually did this fun little experiment with my friend Alex. He lives out in LA, and so we were just through like Facebook Messenger, and he was like, all right, I'm going to try the S's method now. And we were going to see if I could project something to him and he could receive it and say it like via the S's method. I happened to be watching Law and Order SVU, when he was ready. He's like, all right, I'm ready. And I kind of was distracted, obviously, because I'm watching Law and Order SVU. And I couldn't really think of what to project. So I just decided I was projecting. I just was like, all right, I'm projecting Law and Order. And he legit was like, I don't even fully remember exactly what he said. It's on the internet somewhere. I shared it on Instagram somewhere, but like our text, but he like was saying words that were like in the show. And at one point he thought he heard like Mariska Hargitay's voice or whatever. You did it, dude. Yes, we did it. So I think you can achieve, really cool things when you're both like trying to like get into the astral realm together. I'm just not into the one-sided version of it.
So with my experiences, I have always found myself, I kind of look at existence as sort of, layers of an onion, right? Mm-hmm. And so I always seem to be just one layer away from physical reality. Mm-hmm. I've never been beyond in either direction. I've never, well, I can't say never. One time I have found, another entity in one of these projections. And I think that was actually the last time. It was really bizarre. Like the very first, like really super successful, time that I had, where it wasn't just like I found myself looking out a window that I am 10 feet away from or something, like a quick little flash. I had those a lot when I started. But the first big one, I just suddenly became aware that I was in this empty building. It was like an apartment building, but I had never seen it before in my life. And I was looking around and no one was around. It was super quiet, just silent really. And I went outside to the parking lot, and that's where I came to the realization that, oh, I'm outside of my body. And I looked up and there's this really tall tree in the corner of this parking lot, and it's dark out. There's like a street light, and I thought, man, I want to fly. So immediately it was like I stayed in the same position and the rest of the world just kind of sank below me. And I went to the top of this tree and then I woke up. And a lot of my experiences are similar to that, where it's silent and there's nothing around, just empty real world looking places. But the last one that I had, this is a long time ago. It's been a long time since I've had anything happen. The last one, I came to and looked down and saw myself sleeping, but I was on the other side of the bed from where I would normally sleep. And I thought, okay, this is different because this isn't where I sleep and it's not where I felt sleep. And I walked outside, and in the backyards of the neighborhood that I was in, they were building an amusement park. And I didn't see anybody working, but I knew that they'd been building this amusement park. And the neighbor was outside looking at it. And I went over and I talked to him because I was excited. I had finally found somebody else. And we were just talking about the amusement park. And then, I woke up, or came back here, however you want to word it. And that was the only time. And that was the last time. It's really weird. But all of my experiences have been just in this sort of real world space.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating for me to talk to someone who becomes a dragon and talks to giant elephants and swims in lakes of mercury.
I think our like mundane like reality shapes a lot of our astral reality. I think the way that we engage with the world around us influences the way that we engage with astral realms and what they look like. I read a lot of fantasy books. Definitely big on Lord of the Rings over here. So, I mean, all of those things live in my mind already.
Yeah.
Some of the coolest stuff is some of the validating stuff though, right? Like one of my oldest friends lives on the complete opposite side of the country. I live in Maine. She lives in Puget Sound, and we hadn't seen each other in like 4 or 5 years. And we were both like doing the same thing. Like she was traveling too. we saw a lot of UFOs together. I mean, you know, we were like on that wave together. And, you know, again, 4 or 5 years goes by, she comes here and we start talking about our meditations. And lo and behold, we both saw this crazy like grasshopper creature. And we were both having the same experience where, we were trying to cast that cord down into the earth and it wouldn't go. It would just shoot off like into outer space. Like for a whole year, I couldn't get my cord into the center. It just was going off into the outer space. And it was the same exact thing was happening to her. And so it's just like all those like weird little things. Like she and I when I say we hadn't seen each other in 4 years, I also mean we hadn't even talked. Like she's not on social media, and doesn't text. And so our communication was really limited. So there wasn't a lot of reasons why we would have a shared experience, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You kind of assume that your subconscious is making up. Then all of a sudden you realize you're having this shared experience with somebody else, which is just really bizarre. It's bizarre that I can project Law and Order to Alex in LA.
That's crazy. It's bizarre. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Like, why? But then, you know, then we can get into all the talk about collective consciousness and is there this like thing we can tap into and access, like a big, you know, information bank. Maybe.
Akashic Records.
Right? Maybe it's something like that. Yeah. A lot of thoughts on those, but
something that I do want to go back to a little bit is this whole cord thing. Because in the books that I was reading, which seemed to have approached it mostly from almost a scientific aspect of it, there's a lot of talk about the silver cord theory, whereby when you are away from your physical body, that you're attached to it constantly by this silver cord. I remember one time I thought to myself while I was out, I was like, well, I wonder if that's really a thing. And I looked down to my right hip, and sure enough, there's this silver cord that is coming out of my, I don't know my energy body or whatever. And I thought, wow, I wonder what that's like, because it's supposed to be like super stretchy and fun. And so I squeezed it, and it was like almost like a garden hose, like rubbery texture. And I stretched it between my hands, and it snapped back to its place when I let go. And it's not dissimilar from you running a cord from your body into the center of the earth, and that's where you find yourself. Or you try to do that, and it shoots off into outer space or whatever, like you had mentioned. And the Mission Impossible thing, like it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, it is. It is. Mine's just red.
Are you a red dragon?
No, I'm like I'm kind of a greeny gray brown.
My favorite color. Let's move on from this astral projection stuff. I could talk about it forever. And I definitely would like to talk with you about it more, but I do want to get into this whole summoning extraterrestrials thing.
Okay.
Because my interest is piqued.
I say that very loosely because I have a very loose definition of what an alien is. Because I'm not convinced that a lot of paranormal activity that has been suggested to be ghosts isn't aliens. I'm not convinced that Bigfoot is not a fairy. I'm pretty convinced that Bigfoot's a fairy. You know, I think a lot of our language separates things that actually overlap quite a bit. So that's why I say my definition of an alien is very loose. But it all started. It all started with an episode of Haunt Me at Fort Knox. It was supposed to be my episode. That season we each had an episode centered around an investigator, and this episode was my episode. So for my episode, and each episode we were accompanied by like some sort of paranormal, you know, kind of expert. obviously none of us are experts, but like someone a little more of an expert than us. And my guests were the Newkirk. And since it was mine, I decided to center this entire episode around a ritual that I created. That year I had a lot of experience with creatures that I was calling like river elementals, because I had gotten in an Estes message session that they were like protecting the river. And so I was just kind of like assuming they were like, they're the river's little like elementals. And so I got this different idea of how we could have been messing up the elementals realm from society. Like if we polluted this river and it messed up the water elementals, like what did we do to the earth ones and the air and all this stuff? So I was like thinking to myself that I would do a different altar for each element and see if anybody wanted to come in and talk about, you know, ways that we can help here in this mundane realm. So I set up this giant, and so all these little altars obviously ended up just making a giant altar, especially because I set them up in the formation of a pentagram. And I did it on top of Fort Knox in Maine, and that place is humongoloid. So I have this star. Each little altar had a dedication. So we spoke to the elements. We broke bread with them. I brought food that I thought was represented by each element, and we shared it with them. I had made candles for each element. There was a lot of work had gone into each altar, and it was months of preparation. And so we get there and we do this spell, and all of a sudden, all this stuff starts happening, and Dana and I do this dual S's method session where we are talking to the up, is what they kept saying, the up. What I remember from that session is that I felt like I was a fly on the wall on like other people's conversations. And they were talking about spaceships, and they were talking about flying. And while Dana and I are blindfolded and in this S's method session, so obviously I only hear about this after because I'm in this session like talking and listening, but everybody else is seeing lights in the sky flying around.
Wow.
Yeah. They're all screaming and freaking out, and we're just like in this like session. It's just like we just are there, you know, for hours and hours and hours, like 6 or 7 hours, and we're just getting so much evidence. We're just talking to these like other beings, and they're really like weirded out that we can hear them, is like basically like the underlying thing that was happening that night. But I tried to use my tarot cards to get more information. You know, the tarot cards didn't really like do a lot when it came to talking with the up. That was really more of like the S's method was really like perfect for that for some reason, which raises a lot of questions, obviously, as far as like subconscious and stuff goes, but it is what it is. And that night, one of my favorite parts was that when we were packing up and getting ready to go, I was like packing up this like box I carry everything in. And that night I had wind chimes, and I didn't want them to get broken. They're like bamboo wind chimes. Mm-hmm. So I remember packing everything in and putting the wind chimes on top. And then I had my tarot cards dangling in their like little pouch on my arm, and they kept hitting the wind chimes because they were dangling, and it was driving me crazy. So I took them off my arm and put them in the box, and then I put the wind chimes on top of them. When I got home, I didn't have those tarot cards anymore. I still don't have those tarot cards. Sacrifice to the up. So that's where it started. Obviously, you know, it's like a cool story, bro. There's like not a lot of information. So it sent my mind racing. Can I contact the up again? Can I do it again? Well, yes and no. I've never been able to recreate that scenario. Fort Knox is a public place. We had special permission, you know. It's all been like anytime I've tried to recreate the scenario, it's all been of a much smaller scale and much less preparation. But there's always something. Octagon Hall. Are you familiar with Octagon Hall?
I'm not.
So Octagon Hall is in Kentucky, and it's like a Confederate, like, historical building, you know, icky. And and the owner of Octagon Hall, well, I don't know if it's the owner, but the caretaker has had a lot of UFO experiences. And what better place to try this ritual? So I am at Octagon Hall with a couple of friends, Lisa and Rachel, if they're listening, hello. And we do the ritual. Only a day's preparation, but care and thought went into it, and we did the same thing, just on a smaller scale. I did an Estes method session, and it was much, much different. I didn't really hear any conversations. It sounded to me like one voice talking in slow motion. So I don't know if anyone is familiar with the way that a spirit box sounds, but you know they go really fast through those stations. So it's lots of just blip. I would say one word, like hello, took like 5 stations. Like it took my brain so long to even register that those were the sounds I was hearing, just like long stretched out words. So then I did it again. Not at Octagon Hall, but at a local haunted location, trying to have one sort of like X factor, right? The haunted location, the potential window area. And this time I get all of this information about the constellations that were around me. And actually I've gone back since with another ghost hunting team from New Hampshire, and we got really similar information. Lots of talk about the very specific constellations that surround that area of the graveyard. So like if you take your little phone and you hold it up with your little constellation app, it literally was just like confirming all of the information I was getting. A lot of information about like people being in charge. So there's like a certain person you're supposed to talk to, and if you're not talking to the right person, you're not going to get the right information because everybody only has like certain pieces of the puzzle. I felt like that even kind of related to humans. Like when you think astrologically, I've learned like a lot of people with a lot of water in their charts are more prone to these like really visual experiences. And a lot of people, but not solely. I mean, people with a lot of earth in their chart also are prone to these experiences, but it just really seems like across the board, water people are just prone to these visual experiences. And feeling and like, anyway, but, I feel like, you know, when we think about people and their astrological birth chart and having these like dominances in earth and air and fire and water and all these different things, and the way that they contribute to society different from somebody else that with a different chart, like we are all part of this bigger puzzle. Like we all do have a different piece of information. And when we come together as a community, that's when the puzzle gets like put together and makes more sense. But the aliens told me that first. I challenged people to do I don't even remember if I probably posted on Instagram. I challenged people to do this ritual. I shared pictures of my notes that I took while creating it and some like tips and tricks that I use while doing it. I think everyone should do it. Feel free to tell me about it. Tell me about everything, all about it. Email me. I love it. Because I think the more, you know, if the collective consciousness is real and the more we put out a specific ritual to get a specific answer to, like, we're creating like the next round of rituals, right? If we all do the same thing, it's like it creates a phone number, maybe. And that could be cool.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to give you a little time to promote your stuff. I know we've talked about it a little bit, but where can people find different projects that you have, and how can they get in contact with you and all of that good stuff?
I have like a link tree. I guess it's probably easiest to find if you're on Instagram or Twitter. I wish I had the same handle on both of those, and I don't. It's not smart. But my Instagram is Ghost Quartz, GHSTQUVR. Wait, TZ, I guess. I probably spelled it wrong.
Good luck. You just find it.
Good luck. Find me. Have fun. But you can just go to gorganized.me. If you're a Hammer film lover, you'll appreciate that, I hope. But Gorganized, like the Gorgon does when she turns men to stone with her eyes, .me. And that's my website. There you can find things that I make. And you guys should come to Savannah the weekend of 9/11 if you want to try to summon aliens with me again.
That does sound like a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'll be at a paranormal event where we're going to try to do some fun stuff in haunted Savannah, which is a very intense place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should get Greenfield to come. He's not that far away.
Oh, yeah? Oh, God. I'm not the promoter. I'm not like the promoter, the creator of the event. So I'm just a little participant.
Could you imagine you just show up and Greenfield's with you? And
oh my gosh. I know Andrea Perron is going to be there. Perron. I don't know who else is confirmed. I forgot. But Wandering Further events, come to Savannah, summon the up.
Yeah.
They can talk to us more about, I don't know, they get real preachy about ways to fix our society. And I agree with them, but there's also only so much we can talk about it and not acting on it that I can deal with. I only want to talk about it so much. I want people to just do it. Start being better. Do it.
Absolutely.
Just do it. So, they've been real preachy I did a series of tarot readings where I summoned the up before I did the reading for the person, and some of my fellow paranormal enthusiasts did the S's method after our tarot reading to see if there was any words of wisdom and, information. It was all about restructure of society and the collective consciousness, actually.
That's something.
So, yeah, every time they want us to be more participatory in our mundane realm, get it operative so that we can thrive.
That sounds good. I'm on board.
Sounds good.
Well, Katie, thank you again so much for coming on and talking with everybody tonight. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I hope people get out there and get meditating. I know people don't like to admit that it's important, but man, you can do some really cool stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I might go do it right now.
Yeah, even if it's not dragons. I mean, it's still cool. Do you play video games? Is that why you're in empty buildings?
That's weird. I don't know. I mean, I do, but I never thought about that.
I mean, I feel like there's all the naysayers out there that feel like when the subconscious gets involved, it kind of like detracts from that like paranormal experience. But I don't know. In my opinion, it adds to it. I think that's weirder. I think it's weirder to have a paranormal outer body experience, but also have your subconscious involved. Like, what? What? Why? How? So, I don't know.
I think maybe it just goes to show how closely connected it all is.
Yeah, exactly, right? So even if, you say...
I apologize for the sound. The patio has been flooded with giant trucks all of a sudden.
You hear that?
Good Lord!
An ambulance happening at the same time.
Well, they're going to be coming here if these people don't knock it off.
There was an ambulance on my end.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. They're on to us. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Until next time, keep the fire going.